I think the biggest misconception about intuition and psychic abilities is that it is a gift. It is not a gift. It's your birthright. And every single person on earth has abilities, and they are usually come through via the senses. Your spirit team, spirit source, God, angels, whatever you want to call it, uses your senses to deliver you messages.
This is The Growth Moment with your coach, Amy Kay. Inspiration, ideas, and incredible insights for you to be more and do more. Get ready to grow today. Take that in. Intuition is not a gift. It's your birthright. Are you fully leveraging that birthright? I know that I've only scratched the surface with how, where, and when I tap into my wisdom. What is possible if you unlock your intuition right across your life? Get ready for a mind-expanding episode with my guest, Holly Franke, a psychic, intuition coach, and extremely fascinating human. We delve into one of Holly's growth moments when she, quote, came out in public with her incredible intuitive skills. As we explore that transformational moment, Holly and I talk about a myriad of topics. Owning all the pieces of yourself, being willing to do that publicly and proudly, as well as the best explanation I've ever heard on how intuition works. For you, there are at least two big themes to ponder as you listen. One is how you might own some piece of yourself that you have been hiding or denying. Both and I'm hoping that you get to deepen the understanding of your intuition, whether you are already well on along that path or haven't really considered it as something to develop. That's the fun part. I never know what my listeners will walk away with. It's special for you. Make sure to listen all the way to the end. Holly does a special psychic intuitive reading with a message for you. We jump in after I ask Holly to describe the growth moment she chose to share. Listen deeply for what you are meant to hear today.
So I felt like I was supposed to talk about the time that I kind of outed myself as a psychic medium funnily enough, at a fundraiser mom's brunch for my kids' private school. And it was the moment was, I've had this before where it was, you can dive in, fully own all the pieces of you, publicly and proudly, or just kind of fit in. And I've always been really good at fitting in. I feel like as an eldest daughter, I was like a straight A student. I went to a private school, like very much like a good little girl, always wanted to kind of check off all the boxes. And at that moment, I really just was like, screw it. I just have to do this, because how can I teach my kids to do something that I don't do?
When was this? How long ago was this?
It was only like 2 years ago. It wasn't very long ago.
Oh my God.
It was only a couple years ago. I was nervous that I would then be labeled like the weird psychic mom. And then my kids would be like, oh,
the psychic children,
yeah, like, oh, like your mom's like that weird lady, and I think there's a lot of preconceived notions about intuitives and psychics and mediums and what they do. And honestly, most of them are wrong, and at least where I'm concerned. And I was nervous, but I just said, screw it. And I did it.
Can you describe, paint us a picture?
Yes, I can. At the school we were at the time, I was also on the board of directors. I was helping out with fundraising for the school, and I was hosting a mom's brunch that they had paid to come to at my home. And we were sitting around, everyone sharing a meal and eating, and it was lovely. And everyone was dressed up. And I just said it. I felt like I was supposed to say it. And we were talking, I think I just brought it up, honestly. I said I had just finished doing a reading for my mentor at the time. And one of the moms said, "Oh, how cool, you got a reading done. What did they say to you?"
No.
And I said, "Oh, no, I did the reading." And then it was kind of like you could have dropped a pin on the floor in my dining room and heard it. It was, but then it was, so there was like a moment where it was, I thought, oh, okay, is this going to be like how I feared it would be? And it wasn't. Everyone said, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I want a reading. And can you pull cards for me?" And then we all moved to the living room.
And did you start doing readings for people right in that moment?
I just did it. I pulled out my oracle card deck and I did it. And
oh my goodness.
when you do readings in groups, they're so beautiful because the energy is so palpable. And there's always tears because there's always growth. And it was such a cool moment where I embraced and kind of owned really fully who I was and was so well received. So all the fears were just in my mind, really.
I have so many questions. I think the way you put it at the beginning was, I fully owned all of my pieces publicly and proudly. What caused you to be public and proud?
I think that as I am on my motherhood journey, I would say being a mom stretches you and makes you grow in ways you kind of didn't anticipate.
Oh, yes.
I always tell my kids to be fully who they are unapologetically, and it just one day, like before the brunch, it just hit me that I didn't do that.
So it was a walking my talk moment.
Yes. And I am very much like who I am unapologetically in most ways.
So privately and proudly was before then.
Yes.
So would integrity be an appropriate word to use, to be in your integrity?
Yeah. I just didn't feel like I felt like I was telling my kids to do something that I didn't do because I perceived it as maybe not being convenient or comfortable for other people. And it's like, I just would think to myself, what if I told my kids that? What if I told my kids, be yourself, but not that one little part?
Hold that back, keep that in private so that you don't make anyone uncomfortable. You don't inconvenience them, and you don't risk. I mean, that's what comes up too. I don't know if that's right for you. There's no risk.
Yeah, there's no risk. I am at the point in my life where I'm almost 40, and I just think, I just don't really care anymore if people are comfortable around me or they're comfortable with who I am. As long as I'm good with how I show up, then that's all that matters. And honestly, I've never had anyone be anything but curious and kind and interested. Normally it's curiosity that it piques in people.
I met you not too long ago at Jessica Clark's The Connected Companies gathering in Carpinteria, California. And I attended your workshop that morning. And talk about palpable and electric. I think your workshop was the most well attended. It was standing room only. We're all sitting there, kind of ears open, eyes glued. And you are such a beautiful, natural gift giver. It just feels so organic and effortless. And I'm amazed that you've only been public for that short of a time in a way. But what I will say is, not only was everyone in that workshop like, "Oh, please, please pick me." In the exhibit hall, that line never ended. I'm sure there are people who still wanted every single person there.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? Just that I was so struck by the hunger almost.
I mean, I'm not an astrologer or anything, but without getting into that too much, we are entering an age where it's going to be a pivot from people, like from experts to people being their own experts.
Ooh.
I love to do readings. They're awesome and they're always incredible and people leave with so much. But my favorite thing is to do the talks because I want everyone to be their own psychic because everyone can do it. And so it's just so fun to me to see people light up and think, oh yeah, I actually am really intuitive.
I don't usually do this on the growth moment where I have someone explain what they do, but could you share your philosophy of the clairs and this innate ability that we all have? Because I had never, ever in all my half woo-woo years that I've had of my two sides of my personality, I mean, I've come across a lot of things. No one had ever explained it that way to me and made me feel aware of the gifts that I already had. So could you share? What struck you from this first part with Holly? What hit me is the concept of owning all the pieces of myself, publicly and proudly. I remember when I became a coach in 2002, I just dove into the deep end, telling everyone in my world that I was leaving corporate life to do something that was considered back then a bit weird and not completely professional. However, I knew intuitively that I was meant to be a coach, publicly and proudly. I think of my many clients who have stepped up to claim that they are a writer or an author, to stand up for values that are getting stomped on, coming out with their political beliefs, sexuality, or a new life balance, or like me, owning a radical new career path. What pieces of yourself do you need or want to own? Take a moment to ponder and feel free to jot down a few notes. And as I said earlier, there are at least two big themes in this episode. Owning your pieces is one, and the other is unlocking or fully leveraging your intuition. This is what we explore next. We go back in as Holly takes us through the different kinds of intuition and how you can be your own psychic expert. So cool.
I think the biggest misconception about intuition and psychic abilities is that it is a gift. It is not a gift. It's your birthright. And every single person on earth has abilities, and they are usually come through via the senses. Your spirit team, spirit source, God, angels, whatever you want to call it, uses your senses to deliver you messages. So the one that people are the most familiar with is clairvoyant, which is clear seeing. People often think that's like when you literally see visual, or apparitions. Like they'll say like, "Oh, or is this hard for you to be here? Do you see a room full of like dead people?"
I don't.
No. If we're doing a reading, I'm going to see a visual. Like when we did your reading, I saw that visual of a gift. And so in my mind's eye, I saw like an actual gift, and it's just in my mind's eye. And so if you're someone who's artistic, or you just love fashion, or you love art, or any design, anything like that, you will probably have clairvoyance as one of your clairs. And you can have one, all, two, couple, and they change and they shift as time goes on. So that's the one people are most familiar with. And then there's also clairsentience. So this is for people who are labeled as sensitive, as empaths. It's clear feeling. You feel the feelings of others in your body. You can feel the emotion of a room, of a group, of a place. And that's such a powerful clair that a lot of people have, but they just don't call it by its name. And then there's also claircognizance, which is clear knowing.
That's me.
Yes. So, and it's really common. I'm not surprised. It's really common among people who are leaders in their field. And that is just clear knowing. You just know, in your bones. You don't know why you know, but you do know. And that's a really common clair among public speakers, leaders. I'm not surprised. And then another one is clairaudience. So this is another one of my main clairs, and that's clear hearing. And this is really common if you love music, if you are chatty, or if it's clear hearing. So I tell people, when people are clairvoyant, they see it in their mind's eye. And when you're clairaudient, you hear it in your mind's ear. And a really important thing to note about clairaudience is that it sounds like your own voice. I don't hear a disembodied voice. It sounds like...
You don't hear God's voice?
No, it sounds like me.
You just hear words or phrases or messages?
Yeah, it just sounds like me saying it. And that's in my mind's ear. The two more random ones are clairalience, and that's clear smelling. And sometimes this will come up if it's more of a mediumship reading, and I might like smell cigarette smoke if they were a smoker, or smell something they used to bake, or it's clear smelling. That's not one of my chief ones. And then the last one is clear gustance, and that's clear tasting, and that you might taste. One of my mentors would always taste salt when it was about the ocean, but I don't have that one. So I can't comment too much on that one.
And so for some of my super logical, analytical, scientific listeners, and, and some of my corporate types that, I'm thinking a couple of my guy clients where they'd be like, what the hell are they talking about?
So if you've ever had a gut feeling, that's clairsentience.
But exactly, right? I think about them and them thinking, I can see all of these different male clients in my head right now and how they'll talk about something in business. And it's often all of these things. And I think the difference is that some people would say, well, no, it's just about me knowing these things as opposed to getting it from somewhere. How do you speak to that? Does it even matter if you believe that it's coming from God, angels, spirits, or we're just sensing the world in the way that we do?
I don't think it matters if you know where it's coming from necessarily. So often, I'm married to one of these men, so I can comment.
As am I.
So quite knowledgeably on the subject, but he would say that he has gut feelings, and it doesn't really matter if he knows it's clairsentience, even though it is, or claircognizance. I just want people to use their intuition, because when you do, I think that it's such an empowered feeling. And some of the most intuitive people are people who work on Wall Street, like the men who work on Wall Street that buy the stocks, based on a gut feeling.
Gosh, yes, right? And they might think it's all, but we know the way the human brain works. We are using all of our senses all the time, every moment of the day, to make sense, to figure things out. So this makes deep clarity for me of the fact that it's still sense-based at just almost a different frequency, or, how in the light spectrum, there's all the colors that we can't perceive with our eyes. It makes so much sense to me that there's all kinds of frequencies of data, if you will, and information. Of course, our senses have ways of sucking that in and processing. And are you aware? Are you listening? Are you paying attention?
Well, and I would say too that the more you start kind of paying attention to, so if you're just a totally scientific, analytical person like my husband, I would tell him, pay attention to those gut feelings. And I bet you start having more. Or maybe you start, a visual pops into your head, and if you kind of give credence to the imagination, that's intuition.
Well, an inspiration in a sense.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know where it came from. I just had this great idea for a novel.
Cognizance.
Exactly.
Yeah. So people just don't name it, and you don't have to name it, but I find that when you do, it has more power, more weight. So when you were talking about the light spectrum and what humans can and cannot see, I think that when you start to tap into your intuition and become aware of the ways that it might present, you are expanding your ability to perceive.
Yes.
And so you're expanding your ability to perceive. And the more you do it, the more you will get. And the more I think it would make sense. And it's also really helpful to look in hindsight on times where you had what I would call an intuitive hit and you listened, or times when you had an intuitive hit and you didn't listen, to kind of see how you experience intuition.
And I don't know if we can make it available in the show notes, but that worksheet that you gave us in the workshop, what was it called? My Intuitive History.
Mm-hmm.
And you had all of these cool things that when they're put that way, like, have you ever had an idea that popped in your head? Have you ever, had a feeling in your stomach? And then you start to check them off and go, oh, and your shoulders go back and you stand taller saying, I do have all kinds of receptive and perception abilities. Who knew? All right. So here's my question. When you went from private to public, in that same way, did your abilities expand? As Holly described the different kinds of intuition, or the clairs, which ones made you say, that's me? Mine was definitely the clair cognizance, or knowing. I love how Holly explains it. It's all related to our normal senses, just amplified. Her teaching has fundamentally deepened my understanding. Most definitely, check out her intuition checklist to help identify some of your personal intuitive style. There is a link in the show notes. And then there is Holly's wish that we all use our intuition birthright. It doesn't matter whether you believe that it's inner knowing or sorting through additional data coming into your senses, or it's channeling, downloading from some spiritual source. The point is, are you aware? Are you paying attention? Now, we jump back in after I ask Holly if her abilities expanded once she went public and proud.
Yes. And I'm very much a divine soul in a human body, having a human experience. So there are days where I feel very in tune and very psychic. And then there's other days where I'm just grinding and I'm very much in my human experience.
So you kind of have shut it off, or the channels aren't open, or
it just depends on the day. And I think that I would say there is a misconception that if you are tapped in, you're never going to have challenges, which is just not true, because we're here to expand and grow as souls and learn. And a lot of times we learn through the hard stuff. Yeah, the more you notice it, the more you notice it. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And the more you pay attention, the more you'll see.
So from that moment 2 years ago or so at the mom's lunch, when you went public, what changed for you in your life, in yourself?
I would say I was just not nervous to own who I am. I know who I am, and I didn't need it to be okay for anyone else. And that was really freeing, to not feel like I had to be anything for anyone but me.
I always think of the piece of that our job is to be us, and it's just not any of your damn business what anybody else does with you or what they think of you. And so to me, it's almost about boundaries or clarity of what's my part in this world, and not to give too many thoughts about everybody else and how they experience me. But that is, lifetime of usually childhood programming, societal programming to undo.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is.
What kept you from being public before then? So this discomfort that people might be uncomfortable or inconvenience, was there anything else that stood between you and this embracing?
Oh, yeah, I would say the childhood conditioning. I went to Catholic school and Baptist school.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So
all good. But yes, that's not necessarily an environment conducive to this particular kind of a gift.
No, I mean, I remember vividly seeing my grandmother after she'd passed away. I was in high school when that happened. But you grow up hearing, like in religious school, and the ones that I went to, at least, I think there's some wonderful ones out there, but the ones I went to, that it's evil.
Right. It's the devil. It's the dark forces and you have to, protect yourself from those energies.
Yeah. So I didn't want it. I was like, please let me be normal. Oh. I desperately just wanted to be normal, and I wasn't. I never was going to be. I think when you have kids, well, at least this is how it was for me. When you have kids, you don't want to have them inherit your issues. And I never wanted my kids to feel how I felt about that stuff, because everyone is intuitive. Everyone is psychic. And my kids we talk about it all the time. So they're very in tune with energy and their own energy. And I never wanted them to feel embarrassed about it or hide it. And so I just grew up hearing at school that it was bad. So I really pushed it away.
So what helped you over time to even approach that growth moment of private to public So yes, I understand that I want to model for my kids. I want to walk my talk. I don't want them to ever feel this. What else shifted or impacted you? Did you always know it wasn't evil?
I didn't think it was. I have seen passed on loved ones throughout my life, and it never felt scary. I will say there was one time when my oldest son was an infant and I was nursing him, and I definitely felt and saw the presence of a shadowy figure in my room, and that really scared me. And so then it was like, please, I don't want any of this. Like talk about like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I just didn't want any of it. I just started to get kind of curious because I always, even though I said like, I prayed, please, I don't want any of this. I don't want any inner knowing. I don't want it, but you can't do that.
Can't deny it. You can't just stop your being.
No, because you're a person and you're a divine soul in a human body. You're going to be intuitive.
So what along the way, how did you get attracted to some teachings that started to teach you about your birthright, as you say?
Well, it's actually kind of funny. So I had never been to a psychic before I became one because I was so scared of them because of growing up hearing how evil they were. So I had never been to one. So I went to a Reiki. I did Reiki with somebody.
Sure.
And I kind of went hoping that they would know how to do it in a way that felt safe and that they would be able to teach me. And so I went to this Reiki session, and it was one of the most wild experiences I had. And it was just intense. And I had all these visions. And then afterwards, at the end of the session, the practitioner was talking with me and asking me questions. And I actually had all these visions of her. And so I ended up, I didn't realize it, but I kind of did a reading on her instead of her doing one on me. And I was like, okay.
Was she kind of blown away? Or?
Yeah. And the thing was, I remember very vividly, I saw her I had a vision of her putting like a bandana over her third eye. Like she was kind of tuning it out.
Blocking some.
And I asked her, because I said, I was like, I was hoping you could kind of teach me how to kind of tap into this when I wanted to, and when I don't, and to turn it off when I want to turn it off. And she said, I don't do anything like that. I'm afraid of it. She basically said she was afraid of it, which, and I told her what I saw, and it was like, I did the reading on her kind of.
Oh my goodness.
So that didn't really go like planned. But then I was like, I'm just going to try another Reiki person who does Reiki and intuitive readings. And that's when I met my dear friend Thea, and she just made it feel really safe and really normal. And she was a school teacher. She looked normal.
She looked normal.
She looked normal. She looked like
she didn't have on a gypsy costume.
No, she looked like a normal person. And that's what people always are like, you're psychic to me? And I say, yeah, that's my whole thing is I want people to realize how normal it is. And my dear friend Thea looked and felt normal and safe. And she kind of walked me through it. And she was my mentor for a while. And it was just from there. Oh, but one interesting thing that popped into my head, a reason that I kind of wanted to tap into it, is that when I would do yoga, I would always have really intense headaches at the end of the yoga class. And it was literally in my third eye because I had blocked it and turned it off. And so I was physically starting to feel that. And now that doesn't happen to me anymore.
Oh, boy. I mean, it was, just almost battering.
Yeah. Begging to get out.
Inside of you on the wall to like, please let me be free. Let me be out. So this embracing instead of denying who we are, of course, this comes across all of my coaching. A key part of my coaching, I think, naturally is about authenticity, integrity of being, that when my clients feel lost or stuck or blocked, it's often because they're denying some truth of themselves or the situation and not willing to risk, to trust, embracing all of who they are publicly and proudly. What are the other benefits, would you say, of that stepping over into embracing? I almost didn't want to interrupt yet, but must ask you right now, are you denying your gifts or embracing them? What blocks or keeps you from that embrace? Is it inner stuff or outer stuff or a bit of both? Start pondering what will help you embrace, learn about, leverage, and enjoy all of who you are. Absolutely make some notes. This initial reflection will point the way for next steps. Remember, you are here to expand and grow. Now, we head into the final moments with Holly. Keep listening until the end because she does a special intuitive download just for you. We join in after I asked Holly what other benefits she has found from embracing her full self.
Well, for me, it made it feel a lot less scary because once I did do that, it felt like I had a lot more control over my abilities and intuition. I could turn them off and turn them on, and I wasn't surprised by when things came up for me. And my favorite thing about it is that it gives everyone else permission to do it. It's like, well, if she can do it, then I can do it too.
And the it sometimes isn't just this.
No, it could be anything.
If then I can be a writer. I can write. Oh, I can give myself to this relationship. I can all the things of the world if we embrace who we truly are without judgment, without apology.
That's a big one, without apology.
Without hesitation, without apology. Yeah, how many people, humans, do we know that, oh, I'm so sorry that I'm all of these things. And I see this often with clients of, scared to fully step into themselves because the unknown of like, well, I don't understand what happens then. Yep, we won't know till we do it.
Yeah, me either. I don't know what happens. I didn't know. I mean, even though I literally, my it was owning my intuition. I can't predict everything. I didn't know what was going to happen at that brunch. I didn't know if they were going to
burn you at the stake.
Like, get out of here. Like, we're out of here. Holly's a psychic now, I guess. But no, everyone wanted card reading. So, but you're not going to, you have to take a risk. It has to be a risk. And what popped into my mind just now when you were saying that is something that I do my best work in the drop off line on the way to school with my kids. Like, I get my best downloads, and it's something that they need to hear, but it's also always something that I need to hear. And how it feels, like what came up last week during the school drop off was, you are the only one who can make or break your dreams. You are the only one who can make or break your dreams. And that really hit me like, oh my gosh.
For them, for you, for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, it was like, oh my gosh, that's right. I'm the only one who can make or break my dreams. And if I'm fully owning who I am, I'm that much further ahead in the game, is how it felt for me.
I don't know if this is a crazy question.
I love crazy questions.
Can you a download right now for not only who's listening the first time, but at this moment, for all the people who are going to listen at any given day forevermore, because my episodes are evergreen. They're not timely or, context-based in the world. So can we do that? Just a download of what people need to hear?
This is how intuitive I am. I knew we were going to do something like this. So I have I scribble when I do my download. So I knew we were going to do this.
Okay. Now that gives me, because I didn't know we were doing this until right this moment.
But let me see what I get. So what I just got, and I'm hearing this in my mind's ear, and I'm seeing it, is that the way forward is through. There's no getting around. You can't sidestep who you are and who you came here to be. And that's something that is coming through and that's being highlighted, is that we're supposed to talk about how when we come to Earth, we sign up to do certain tasks and to get through certain growth moments, and that being who you are, the only way forward is through. The only way forward is through.
And so everyone listening, I want you to take that in right now of what that means to you, how you've been sidestepping yourself, what you've been denying, what you've been putting in a box or a drawer, pretending that it doesn't really matter to you as much as it does. Whether it's your purpose, whether it's some principles and values that you've been allowing to be stepped on, whether it's something that you have been wanting to go after and you've held back. The only way forward is through. So many gems. I am truly in love with this episode. Really notice the moments and ideas that grabbed your attention. Write them down. I have my list. When we embrace all of ourselves, we give permission for others too to be all of themselves. Whatever your it is, you have to take a risk. You are the only one who can make or break your dreams. And of course, the way forward is through. You can't sidestep who you are and who you came here to be. I am most definitely wrestling and working on all of these concepts myself. It's no coincidence that this episode follows the previous one on a spirit-led path. It feels like they are companion episodes, both touching on the spiritual, the intangible, inner power, and knowing. I'm growing into embracing myself fully. No sidestepping who I am and who I came here to be. I'm so glad you are on the journey with me. The bottom line, I want you to use your gifts, your intuition, inspiration, and imagination. That's where you get growth, amplification, and acceleration. Make sure to check out those show notes and grab Holly's intuition checklist. Send me what you're learning about unlocking your intuition and owning yourself fully, publicly and proudly. You always are welcome to your own personal growth moment, one-on-one private coaching, or join one of my coaching groups or workshops. To get the scoop, visit thegrowthmoment.com and do subscribe, follow on your favorite podcast app and my YouTube channel. Now get out there and grow today.